It was a discovery that sent a shiver through America, a moment that would haunt the nation for years to come. News anchors struggled to find the words, and families across the country sat frozen in front of their televisions, unable to comprehend the horror unfolding before them. The details were so grotesque, so unthinkable, that they seemed ripped straight from the pages of a horror novel. Headlines screamed of a crime that defied belief, and even the most seasoned reporters found themselves shaken by the sheer brutality of what had been uncovered. On the lonely, windswept plains of Colorado, far from the safety of home, two little girls, Bella and Celeste, were found submerged in the cold, dark depths of crude oil tanks. The isolation of the oil field only added to the sense of dread, as if the land itself was holding its breath. Their father, Chris Watts, the man who should have been their protector, had instead become their destroyer. He chose to hide them away in a place so unimaginable, so cruel, that it left investigators and the public alike reeling in disbelief. The Anadarko petroleum site, a place once associated with the hum of machinery and the routine of daily work, was transformed into a scene of unspeakable tragedy on that August day in 2018. The ordinary became sinister, and the familiar landscape was forever changed. Investigators, many of whom had spent their careers confronting the worst humanity had to offer, were visibly shaken as they recovered the bodies of the girls and their mother, Shanann, from a nearby shallow grave. The weight of the moment was palpable, and even the most stoic officers struggled to maintain their composure. The image of those oil tanks, wrapped in crime scene tape and bathed in the early morning light, became the defining symbol of the case. They stood as a stark reminder of innocence lost and of a crime that shattered the illusion of safety and happiness in suburban America. Chris's actions were not just an attempt to conceal his crime. They were a final, brutal erasure of his family from the world. Every detail, every calculated move, spoke to a chilling determination to make them disappear, as if they had never existed at all. The search for answers would soon begin, peeling back the layers of what appeared to be a perfect life. As investigators dug deeper, they would uncover secrets, lies, and a darkness that had been hiding in plain sight, forever changing the way we look at the people we think we know. On the surface, the Watts family seemed to have it all, a modern American dream in Frederick, Colorado. Chris Watts, the quiet, dependable husband, and Shanann, the vibrant, outgoing mother, shared their lives openly on social media. Their daughters, Bella and Celeste, were the heart of the family, their laughter and love on full display in countless videos. Shanann, pregnant with their third child, documented every moment, painting a picture of happiness and stability. They lived in a spacious home, celebrated holidays, and appeared to be a close-knit, loving unit. But when Shanann and the girls vanished in August 2018, the community was left stunned. How could a family so open and full of life simply disappear? Beneath the polished surface, the Watts family seemed perfect to the outside world. They had a beautiful home, two lovely daughters, and another child on the way. But behind closed doors, deep cracks had begun to form in the Watts' marriage. The once happy couple now found themselves drifting apart, their conversations turning into arguments, and their shared moments filled with tension. While Shanann was away with the girls, Chris grew distant, hiding a secret affair with coworker Nicole Kessinger. He found solace in the attention and excitement of a new relationship, something that seemed to be missing at home. He painted himself to Kessinger as a man on the verge of separation, obsessed with a new life free from responsibility. He portrayed his marriage as a prison, and himself as a man yearning for freedom. Shanann sensed something was wrong, desperately trying to save their marriage through texts, letters, and hope for their unborn son. She poured her heart out, hoping to rekindle the love they once shared. Her efforts were met with coldness as Chris saw his family as an obstacle to his desires. He became increasingly detached, ignoring her calls and messages, lost in his own world. The confrontation was inevitable. Shanann returned home and confronted Chris about his affair. The tension that had been building up finally erupted, leading to a heated argument. The lies were unraveling. and Chris felt trapped between two worlds. He was torn between his responsibilities as a husband and father and his desire for a new life with Kessinger. Divorce or custody battles weren't options in his mind. He saw only one, darker way out. The pressure of maintaining his double life was becoming unbearable. The stage was set for tragedy. The facade of a perfect family was about to shatter, leading to an unimaginable outcome that would leave everyone in shock. The final hours of the Watts family began in the stillness of their suburban home, a place that had always seemed safe and ordinary. But as darkness settled over the neighborhood, an unimaginable tragedy was about to unfold, one that would leave a permanent scar on everyone who heard its story. Shanann Watts returned home late from a business trip, exhausted but relieved to be back with her family. She quietly entered the house, unaware that these would be her last moments of peace. In the early hours, a final argument erupted between Shanann and her husband, Chris. Tension that had been simmering beneath the surface for weeks finally boiled over, shattering the fragile calm of their home. In a shocking act of violence, Chris strangled his pregnant wife, ending her life and the life of their unborn son, Nico. The brutality of the act was both sudden and devastating. Their daughters, Bella and Celeste, awoke to the chaos and confusion, frightened and bewildered. They were still alive, left to witness the aftermath of their mother's murder, their innocence shattered in an instant. Chris, now consumed by panic and desperation, wrapped Shanann's body in a sheet and carried her to his truck. He then led his two terrified daughters out into the night, loading them into the vehicle alongside their mother's lifeless form. He drove them for miles through the darkness, heading toward a remote oil field where he worked. The drive was silent, heavy with fear and confusion, as the girls clung to each other in the back seat. At the oil site, Chris dug a shallow grave for Shanann, burying her with little ceremony. The cold, industrial landscape stood in stark contrast to the warmth of the home he had destroyed. In a chilling sequence of events, he turned on his daughters. First Celeste, then Bella, each child's final moments marked by confusion, terror, and betrayal at the hands of the person they trusted most. Chris forced their small bodies into separate oil tanks, hiding them away in the darkness, as if trying to erase all evidence of the family he had destroyed. In her final moments, Bella's desperate plea, "Daddy, no!" echoed in the night, a haunting reminder of innocence betrayed and a father's ultimate betrayal. By sunrise, the Watts home stood eerily silent, its secrets hidden for now. Chris had erased his family, leaving behind only questions and heartbreak. He returned home, ready to play the part of the distraught husband and father, weaving a web of lies for friends, neighbors, and police. But he left behind more than just bodies. He left behind a home filled with memories, toys, and the echoes of laughter that would never return. The community, once peaceful and trusting, was about to be shaken to its core as the truth began to emerge. The brutality and senselessness of that night would haunt investigators, neighbors, and the public for years to come, a grim reminder of the darkness that can hide behind closed doors. The mask of normalcy was gone forever, replaced by a legacy of loss and unanswered questions that would linger long after the sun rose on that unthinkable night. With his family gone, Chris Watts transformed into a convincing, concerned husband. When Shanann missed a doctor's appointment, her friend called police, and Chris rushed home, feigning panic. He gave interviews, pleading for his family's return, his performance fooling many. He sent texts to Shannann's phone, spoke with her family, and tried to plant the idea that she'd left with the girls. Behind the scenes, his every word was a calculated lie. The community rallied around him, organizing searches and vigils. But investigators noticed cracks in his story. His emotions seemed rehearsed, his demeanor off. The mask was slipping. For a brief moment, Chris controlled the narrative. But suspicion was growing, and the truth was closing in. The monster behind the mask was about to be revealed. While Chris played the grieving husband, investigators worked tirelessly behind the scenes. His calm, flat demeanor and inconsistencies raised red flags. A polygraph test exposed his deception, shifting the investigation's focus squarely onto him. Confronted with the results, Chris spun a new lie, claiming Shanann had killed the girls and he'd killed her in rage. This desperate story gave investigators what they needed, an admission and the location of the bodies. The search shifted from rescue to recovery. At the oil site, they found Shanann in a shallow grave and the girls in the oil tanks. The truth, in all its horror, was finally out. The facade had crumbled. With the bodies found, Chris's lies collapsed. Facing overwhelming evidence and the threat of the death penalty, he pleaded guilty to all charges in exchange for life sentences. Shanann's family agreed, sparing themselves a painful trial. Months later, Chris gave a full confession from prison, detailing how he killed Shanann and his daughters. He described Bella's final words, cementing his place among the most reviled family annihilators. His motive was selfish, a desire for a new life, unburdened by his family. The confession brought closure for investigators, but little comfort for the grieving. The legal chapter closed, but the horror lingered. For his own safety, Chris Watts was moved to a Wisconsin maximum security prison. He lives in isolation, his days a monotonous cycle of confinement and menial work. Reports say he keeps photos of his victims in his cell, sparking public outrage. Even behind bars, he tries to control the narrative, blaming others in letters published years later. His refusal to accept full responsibility reveals a profound lack of remorse. Chris will grow old and die in prison, forever known as the man who erased his own family. Meanwhile, the memory of Shanann, Bella, Celeste, and Nico lives on in the hearts of those who loved them. The murders left a deep scar on Frederick, Colorado, shattering its sense of safety. The Watts home became a grim landmark, a constant reminder of the tragedy. The case drew global attention, fueled by Shanann's social media presence and the betrayal at its core. Documentaries and forums tried to understand how such evil could hide behind a perfect facade. The community continues to heal, honoring Shanann, Bella, and Celeste with vigils and memorials. Their story is a cautionary tale about the darkness that can lurk behind closed doors. Thank you for joining us on this exploration of a chilling case. For more deep dives into true crime, don't forget to subscribe.